I was 19 the night I overheard my stepbrother say my name, in a way I never imagined. Liana. God. His voice was low, rough and full of something I didn't understand it. It was 3 a.m., and the house was deathly quiet. I had only gotten up to grab a glass of water, but I froze mid-step when I heard it. My name. Killian had come home for a short visit. He rarely stayed with us, preferring his own home across town. Since my dad married his mom 3 years ago, I had only seen him twice. I remembered the first time I saw him like it was yesterday. He was tall, broad-shouldered here and impossibly handsome. He gave off this air of power and control that made it impossible to look away. But that was all he had ever been to me. Distant. He never acknowledged me, never smiled and barely spoke to anyone unless necessary. To him, I was invisible. And yet last night I heard my name on his lips. I knew I should have turned around and gone back to bed, but something in his voice, so desperate, made my feet move closer. The bathroom door was slightly ajar, and the light spilled out in a soft glow. I peeked through the gap, and what I saw took my breath away. There he was, Killian. He was standing in front of the sink, shirtless, his muscles tense, his hand gripped the edge of the counter while his other moved lower. His head was tilted back slightly and his jaw was tight, like he was trying to hold something in. And then he whispered it again. My name, Liana. I froze, my heart racing. My cheeks burned, but I couldn't look away. A part of me hated myself for staying, but another part was mesmerized. Then I accidentally made a sound. His head snapped toward the door, and our eyes met for a split second. Neither of us moved. His gaze was dark, intense and unreadable. But then the moment shattered. Get out, he barked, slamming the door shut. The sound startled me out of my daze, and I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest. I ran down the hallway, back to the safety of my room, and shut the door behind me. I collapsed onto my bed, my mind spinning. I should have been mortified. I should have felt ashamed. But instead, all I could think about was the way he said my name. The next morning, I tried to stay away from him. I stayed in my room, holding my breath every time I heard footsteps in the hall. I waited until our parents left before sneaking to the kitchen. But he was already there waiting. He didn't say anything at first, just watched me, his piercing gaze making my skin prickle. Finally, he spoke. You were there last night, weren't you? His voice was low, almost a growl. I froze, clutching the hem of my shirt. I didn't mean to, but you did. He stepped closer, his tall frame towering over me. How long were you standing there, Liana? Long enough to hear everything. I wasn't trying to. What caught? His lips curled into a smirk, but his eyes were burning with something dangerous. I took a step back, but the cold surface of the fridge stopped me. He moved closer, his hand bracing against the fridge beside my head. You liked it, didn't you? Murmured, his voice dropping to a whisper. Hearing me say your name like that, my breath hitched. Killian, stop. What's wrong, he asked, his tone teasing but sharp. You're blushing. Your legs are shaking. Don't tell me you didn't enjoy it. I felt my cheeks burn as his words cut through me. I tried to push him away, but he didn't budge. You stood there and watched. He continued, his voice dark and smooth. And now you can't stop thinking about it. Can you, Killian? Please, I whispered, though I didn't even know what I was baking for. For a moment, his eyes softened and I thought he might step back. But instead he leaned in closer, his breath warm against my ear. I should walk away, he said, his tone low and dangerous. But every part of me wants to ruin you. Then just as suddenly as he had cornered me, he stepped back. His gaze lingered on me for a moment, dark and unreadable. You'd better forget this ever happened, he said coldly before turning and leaving the kitchen. I sank to the floor, my heart racing and my mind spinning. What had just happened? I couldn't get his voice out of my head. The way his words had made my skin burn. I hated myself for the way I had reacted, the way my body had betrayed me. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop thinking about him, about the way he had looked at me, the way he had leaned and so close I could feel the heat of him. That night, I lay in bed, restless and unable to sleep. Thoughts kept drifting back to the kitchen, to the way his hand had braced against the fridge, trapping me. I closed my eyes and took a shaky breath, trying to push the memory away, but it was useless. No matter how wrong it was, I couldn't stop wanting him. Sometime after midnight, I heard a knock at my door. My heart jumped into my throat. I sat up in bed, my breath catching. I already knew who it was. Billion. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Every instinct told me to lock the door and pretend I was asleep, but I couldn't. I opened the door and there he was. His shirt was unbuttoned, barely hanging off his shoulders. His belt was loose and his pants sat low on his hips. His chest rose and fell as though he had just run a mile. But it wasn't exhaustion on his face. It was hunger. His stormy gray eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, it felt like the entire world had stopped. Killian. I whispered, my voice trembling. He didn't say anything. He just stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. The soft click of the lock engaging echoed through the silence of my bedroom like a gunshot. It was a sound of finality. There was no going back now. Killian didn't move toward me immediately. He stood by the door, his hand still resting on the knob, his chest heaving. The hallway light was cut off, leaving us in the silvery shadows cast by the moonlight filtering through my blinds. It sliced across his face, highlighting the sharp angle of his jaw and the chaotic darkness of his eyes. I tried, he said, his voice rough, like gravel grinding against glass. I went to my car. I put the key in the ignition. I was going to leave. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Why didn't you? He pushed off the door, taking a slow, predatory step toward me. The air in the room seemed to vanish, replaced by his overwhelming presence. Because I'm a liar, Liana. I told you I wanted to ruin you. But the truth is, I think you're the one ruining me. I took a step back, my calves hitting the edge of my bed. I had nowhere left to go. Killian, our parents are down the hall. I don't care. He closed the distance in 2 long strides. He stopped inches from me. He smelled of night air, rain, and that unique, masculine scent of cedar and musk that was entirely him. The heat radiating off his bare chest was intoxicating. I looked up, meeting his gaze, and saw the war waging behind his eyes, desire battling restraint. Restraint was losing. Tell me to leave, he whispered, his hand coming up to cup my jaw. His thumb brushed over my bottom lip, dragging it down slightly. The touch sent a jolt of electricity straight to my core. Tell me to get out, Liana, and I swear to God I will. I opened my mouth to say the words. Go. Leave. This is wrong. He was my stepbrother. He was dangerous. He was everything I shouldn't want. But my body betrayed me. Instead of pushing him away, I leaned into his touch. My hands, acting on their own accord, reached out and rested on his bare waist. His skin was scorching hot, his muscles hard as iron beneath my fingertips. I don't want you to go, I breathed. Something snapped in him. A low growl ripped from his throat as his other hand tangled into my hair, tilting my head back. He didn't kiss me, he devoured me. His mouth crashed onto mine with a hunger that bordered on violence, demanding and possessive. It was a kiss of pent-up frustration, of 3 years of silence and stolen glances. I gasped, and he used the opportunity to deepen the kiss, his tongue sweeping into my mouth, claiming me. My knees gave out, but he caught me, his arm sweeping around my waist to haul me flush against him. I could feel everything, the rapid thud of his heart against mine, the roughness of his hands, the undeniable evidence of his desire pressing against my stomach. He walked us backward until we hit the mattress. We fell together, a tangle of limbs and heavy breaths. He hovered over me, bracing his weight on his forearms, caging me in. Liana, he groaned against my neck, his lips trailing fire down to my collarbone. You have no idea how long I've wanted to do this. Since when? I gasped, my fingers digging into his shoulders. He bit lightly at the sensitive skin of my throat, making me arch my back. Since the day you walked into the wedding reception in that blue dress. You look so innocent, so untouched. And I knew I was going to be the one to corrupt you. His words should have scared me. They should have been a warning. But in the dark, with his weight pressing me into the mattress, they felt like a promise. His hands were everywhere, exploring curves he had only ever looked at from a distance. He was rough, desperate, but there was a reverence in his touch too. When his hand slid up my shirt, his calloused palm grazing my ribcage, I stopped thinking. There was no logic here. No step-siblings, no parents, no society. There was only the friction of skin on skin, the taste of him, and the way he said my name like it was a prayer and a curse all at once. Say it, he commanded, pulling back just enough to look me in the eyes. His pupils were blown wide, swallowing the gray. What? I panted. Say you want this. Say you're mine. I want this, I whispered, tears pricking my eyes from the sheer intensity of the emotion swelling in my chest. I'm yours, Killian. He kissed me again, slower this time, sealing the pact. That night, the silence of the house was broken only by the sounds of our ragged breathing and the friction of sheets. We crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. We broke every rule. And God help me, I didn't regret a second of it. Sunlight hit my face like a physical slap. I groaned, turning over and reaching out for the warmth I knew should be there. My hand hit cool sheets. I opened my eyes, blinking against the brightness. The room was empty. The pillow beside me was indented, proving I hadn't dreamt it, but Killian was gone. Panic, cold and sharp, washed over me. Had he left? Did he regret it? Was he currently downstairs telling our parents what a mistake he'd made? I scrambled out of bed, pulling my robe tight around me. My body ached, a dull, pleasant soreness that brought a flush to my cheeks as memories of the night before flooded back. The way he'd touched me, the things he'd whispered in the dark. I'm going to ruin you. I pushed the thought away and cracked my door open. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I crept down the hallway, my bare feet silent on the hardwood. When I reached the top of the stairs, I heard voices coming from the kitchen. You're leaving already? It was my mother's voice. You only got here yesterday, Killian. Work crisis, came the reply. His voice was calm, detached. The low, desperate rasp from last night was gone, replaced by his usual icy armor. I have to be back in the city by noon. Well, at least have some coffee, my dad chimed in. Liana isn't even up yet. You should say goodbye to your sister. Sister. The word made my stomach turn. I can't wait, Killian said abruptly. Tell her goodbye for me. I froze on the stairs. He was leaving. He wasn't even going to face me. Anger flared in my chest, hot and sudden, overriding the shame. I wasn't going to let him run away. Not after what happened. I marched down the stairs, tying the sash of my robe tighter. You don't have to tell me anything, I announced, my voice shaking slightly but loud enough to carry. I'm right here. 3 heads turned toward me. My mom and dad looked surprised to see me up so early on a Sunday. Killian looked like a statue. He was dressed in a crisp black suit, every button done, every hair in place. He looked perfectly put together, the exact opposite of the unraveled, desperate man who had been in my bed hours ago. His gray eyes met mine, and for a second, the mask slipped. I saw the heat, the conflict. But then the wall slammed back down. Liana, he nodded, his tone polite. Distant. I was just leaving. So I heard, I said, walking into the kitchen. I ignored my parents and stopped right in front of him. I was barefoot, looking up at him, but I refused to be intimidated. Work crisis. Something like that. Must be urgent if you're running away in the middle of the night. My dad chuckled, oblivious to the tension radiating between us. It's 9 a.m. Liana. Hardly the middle of the night. Killian's jaw tightened. He knew exactly what I meant. It was good to see you all, he said to the room at large, but his eyes never left mine. I'll be in touch. When? I challenged. He paused, his hand gripping the back of the kitchen chair until his knuckles turned white. When I figure things out. He turned and walked out the back door without another word. I watched him go. The sound of his expensive car roaring to life in the driveway, twisting a knife in my gut. My mom poured me a cup of coffee, chatting about how hard Killian worked, how proud they were of his business. I sat there, numb, staring at the black liquid in my mug. He had run. He had tasted me, claimed me, and then panicked. You'd better forget this ever happened. That's what he had said in the kitchen yesterday. But last night he had said he couldn't stay away. I didn't know which version of Killian was the truth. But as I brought the coffee to my lips, I realized something. I wasn't the invisible little sister anymore. I was the girl who had made Killian lose control. And now that I knew I had that power, I wasn't going to let him forget it. 3 weeks passed. 21 days of radio silence. I went back to university, threw myself into my classes, and tried to pretend that my world hadn't shifted on its axis. But it was impossible. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. Every time I saw a black Range Rover, I looked twice. He was ghosting me. It was infuriating. It was heartbreaking. And it made me determined. I knew where he lived. I knew where his office was downtown. But I didn't want to be the desperate girl chasing him. If he wanted to play games, fine. Two could play. It was a Friday night when I decided to go out. My roommate, Sarah, had been begging me to go to this upscale club downtown, The Vault. Usually it wasn't my scene, but I needed to get out of my head. I dressed to kill. A slip dress of emerald silk that hugged every curve. Heels that made my legs look miles long, and dark, smoky makeup. I looked in the mirror, and didn't see the shy 19-year-old girl Killian ignored. I saw a woman. The club was loud, thumping with bass and crowded with sweaty bodies. We danced for hours, letting the music drown out my thoughts. Around 1 a.m., Sarah went to find the bathroom, and I headed to the bar for water. I felt eyes on me before I saw him. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. That same prickling sensation I felt in my kitchen. I turned slowly. Across the room, in the VIP section raised above the dance floor, sat Killian. He wasn't alone. There were men in suits around him, bottles of expensive champagne on the table. But he wasn't looking at them. He was looking at me. Even from this distance, his gaze was physical. He looked furious. His hand was clenched around a tumbler of whiskey, his posture rigid. I held his gaze, lifted my chin, and turned my back on him. I felt a perverse sense of victory. I knew he was watching. I started to dance again, swaying my hips to the music, letting a guy who had been eyeing me buy me a drink. I didn't want the guy, but I wanted Killian to see. It took less than 5 minutes. A large hand clamped around my upper arm. I didn't need to look to know who it was. The heat was familiar. The grip was possessive. We're leaving, Killian growled in my ear. I yanked my arm away, turning to face him. He looked terrifying and breathtaking. I'm Buse. You're playing with fire, Liana. You're the one who ran away. I shouted over the music. You don't get to tell me what to do. I didn't run away. I left before I did something worse. What could be worse than sleeping with your stepsister and then ghosting her? His eyes flashed dangerously. He stepped closer, crowding me, shielding me from the rest of the club. Getting addicted to her. That's worse. My breath hitched. Come with me, he said, his voice dropping to that low register that made my knees weak. Please. The please broke me. I nodded. He took my hand, not my arm, my hand, and interlaced our fingers. He led me through the crowd, his body clearing a path, shielding me from anyone who tried to get close. We walked out into the cool night air. His car was waiting at the curb. He opened the door for me, and I slid in. The drive to his penthouse was silent, the tension thick enough to choke on. When we arrived, he didn't take me to the bedroom. He took me to the living room, pouring himself a drink with shaking hands. I tried to stay away, he said, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city skyline. I told myself, you're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. You don't need my darkness, my baggage. You need someone normal. I don't want normal, I said, walking up behind him. I placed a hand on his back. He stiffened but didn't pull away. I want you. He turned around, putting his glass down. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in the 3 weeks we'd been apart. This isn't a game, Liana. If we do this, if I let myself have you, I'm not going to let you go. Not ever. I will consume your life. I will be jealous, possessive, and demanding. I will ruin you for anyone else. Good, I whispered, stepping into his space. Ruin me. He groaned, a sound of pure defeat, and pulled me into his arms. This time, the kiss wasn't frantic. It was deep, slow, and devastatingly intimate. It was acclaiming. You have no idea what you've signed up for, he murmured against my lips. Teach me, I challenged. The next few months were a blur of secrecy and intensity. We fell into a rhythm. During the week, I was the diligent college student. On weekends, I told my parents I was staying at the library or with friends, and I would disappear into Killian's world. His penthouse became my sanctuary. I learned things about him that no one else knew. I learned that he had insomnia, that he played the piano when he thought no one was listening, that he had a scar on his hip from a motorcycle accident when he was 20. I also learned that he hadn't been joking about his possessiveness. He hated when I went to parties. He hated when guys talked to me. He checked in on me constantly. In any other relationship, it might have felt stifling. But with Killian, knowing how cold he was to the rest of the world, his obsession felt like a shield. But living a double life was exhausting. The guilt was a constant companion. Dinner with our parents became a torture session. Sitting across the table from Killian, passing the salt to the man whose name I screamed into his pillows 2 nights prior, felt deceptive and dangerous. My mother suspected something was off with me, but she thought it was stress from school. She had no idea that the source of my stress was sitting right next to her, discussing stock portfolios with my father. The cracks started to show in November. Thanksgiving was coming up. My dad announced that we were all going to the cabin upstate for the long weekend. Just the 4 of us, Dad beamed. Like a real family unit. I choked on my water. Killian didn't look up from his plate, but I saw his jaw clench. I can't go, Killian said. I have meetings. Oh nonsense, Mom said. You work too hard. Liana will be there. You two barely talk anymore. It'll be good for you to bond. I nearly laughed hysterically. Bond. If she only knew. I'll be there, Killian said suddenly, his eyes flicking to me. A challenge. The cabin was small. Intimate. Thin walls. Great. I managed to squeak out. Later that night, I cornered him in the driveway as he was leaving. Are you crazy? I hissed. The cabin? We can't keep our hands off each other for 5 minutes, Killian. They're going to catch us. He leaned against his car, lighting a cigarette. He only smoked when he was stressed. I couldn't stand the thought of you being up there alone. No cell service. And I know your dad invited his business partner's son, the one who's been asking about you. Mark. He's harmless. He's a man. And he wants you. I don't like it. So you're risking everything because you're jealous? He took a drag, blowing the smoke into the night air. His eyes were dark. I never said I was a good person, Liana. I told you. I'm possessive. This is going to blow up in our faces. Let it, he said, tossing the cigarette and crushing it under his boot. He grabbed my waist, pulling me into the shadows of the garage, pressing a hard kiss to my mouth. I'm tired of hiding you anyway. Killian, we can't tell them. Not yet. It would destroy my dad. It would humiliate my mom. He rested his forehead against mine. We can't hide forever. But for this weekend, I'll behave. I promise. He lied. The cabin trip was a disaster waiting to happen. The tension in the car ride up was palpable. Every time Killian shifted in the seat, I felt it. Every time he looked in the rearview mirror and caught my eye, my pulse spiked. The cabin was beautiful, rustic and isolated, surrounded by snow-dusted pines. But the walls were paper-thin. The first night was torture. We played board games by the fire. My dad and Killian drank scotch. I sat on the rug, trying to focus on anything other than Killian's hands, the hands that knew every inch of my body. Mark, the business partner's son, arrived the next day. He was nice, blandly handsome, polite, safe. He brought me hot cocoa. He asked about my classes. Killian watched him like a wolf watching a sheep. So Liana, Mark said during lunch, your dad tells me you're studying art history. That's fascinating. It's okay, I mumbled. She's brilliant at it, Killian interjected, his voice smooth but with an underlying edge. She has an eye for beauty. She notices things others miss. Mark looked surprised that Killian spoke. That's great. Maybe you can show me around the trail later? I hear the view is amazing. I'd love to, I said, mostly to escape the suffocating intensity of Killian's gaze. The sound of silverware hitting china echoed. Killian had dropped his fork. Be careful, he said, staring at Mark. The trails are icy, easy to slip and fall. It sounded like a threat. I went on the walk with Mark. It was fine. Boring. But when we got back, Killian was chopping wood outside. He was in just a t-shirt despite the cold, his muscles flexing with every swing of the axe. Mark went inside to warm up. I walked over to Killian. Subtle, I said, crossing my arms. He swung the axe down, splitting a log in one clean stroke. He didn't look at me. I don't do subtle. He's nice. He's boring. And he was looking at your chest the whole time. He was not. I saw him. Killian finally looked at me, sweat glistening on his brow. Go inside, Liana. Before I do something that will definitely get us caught. Like what? I taunted, feeling reckless. He dropped the axe. In 2 steps he had me pressed against the side of the woodshed, out of sight from the main house. His mouth found mine, hot and tasting of cold air and jealousy. He kissed me until I was dizzy, his hands roaming over my coat, trying to get closer. Killian, I gasped, pulling away. My dad is in the kitchen. He can see the shed. Let him look, he growled against my neck. Stop, please. He pulled back, breathing hard. He rested his head back against the wood, closing his eyes. You're killing me, Liana. We have to be careful. I can't be around him. I can't watch him flirt with you. Then don't watch. I can't take my eyes off you. That's the problem. That night, the snowstorm hit. The power went out. The cabin was plunged into darkness. We lit candles. The atmosphere shifted from tense to intimate. My parents went to bed early, leaving Killian and me alone in the living room with the dying fire. You should go to bed, he said softly. I'm not tired. He looked at me, the firelight dancing in his eyes. Come here. I went to him. I sat on the couch beside him. He pulled me into his lap, burying his face in my hair. We didn't do anything more than hold each other. It was dangerous, reckless, and stupid. Anyone could have walked down the stairs. But for the first time, it wasn't just lust. It was comfort. It was belonging. I love you, he whispered into the darkness. It was the first time he'd said it. My heart stopped. Killian. I know. It's messed up. I know I shouldn't. But I do. I love you, Liana. More than I've ever loved anything. I love you too, I cried softly. We fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms on the couch. We woke up to the sound of a scream. It was my mother. She was standing at the bottom of the stairs, clutching her robe, her face pale with shock. The sun was streaming in. The fire was dead. And Killian and I were tangled together on the couch, his hand under my shirt, my leg thrown over his. There was no explaining this away. No, we fell asleep watching a movie. The intimacy of our position was undeniable. Killian woke up instantly. His arm tightened around me protectively before he even opened his eyes. He saw my mother, saw her horror, and his expression hardened. He didn't scramble away. He didn't apologize. He sat up slowly, pulling me up with him, keeping his arm firmly around my waist. Mom, I whispered, my voice trembling. Get away from him, she whispered, her voice shaking. Liana, get away from him right now. No, Killian said calm, deadly serious. What is going on here? My father's booming voice came from the stairs. He saw us. He saw his wife crying. The silence that followed was heavier than anything I had ever felt. It was the sound of a family shattering. Dad. I started, standing up. Don't, my dad said, holding up a hand. He looked at Killian. The look of betrayal on his face broke my heart. Step away from my daughter. I can't do that, sir, Killian said, standing up and placing himself between me and them. I love her. Love her. My dad laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. She is your sister. She's my stepsister, Killian corrected. We share no blood. And I love her. Get out, my dad said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Get out of my house. Get out of our lives. Dad, please. I cried, grabbing Killian's arm. You too, Liana, my mother said, her voice icy. If you choose him, if you choose this sickness, don't expect to come back home. I looked at them. My parents. The people who raised me. And then I looked at Killian. The man who saw me. The man who loved me, darkness and all. Killian squeezed my hand. It's your choice, Liana. I won't force you. You can stay here, fix this with them. I'll leave. Or, you come with me. It was the hardest decision of my life. But also the easiest. I squeezed his hand back. I'm going with him, I said, my voice steady. My mother turned away, sobbing. My father refused to look at me. We packed our bags in silence. We walked out into the snow, hand in hand. We got into his car and drove away from the cabin. Away from the family we had broken. As we hit the highway, heading back toward the city and an uncertain future, Killian lifted my hand to his lips and kissed my knuckles. I'm sorry, he said. Don't be, I said, leaning my head on his shoulder. You didn't ruin me, Killian. You saved me. He looked at me, a small, genuine smile touching his lips. We'll figure it out. Just us. Just us, I agreed. The road ahead was long, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. But as long as I heard him say my name like that, with love, with reverence, with hunger, I knew we would be okay.